All right, here we go. So hopefully everyone can see this. My first few slides are about WildCare and who we are. And so we are a nonprofit wildlife rehabilitation hospital located in Eastham, and we take care of sick, orphaned, and injured wildlife for release back out into the wild. We do a ton of education and outreach, trying to basically educate the public and empower the public for coexisting with wild animals, and also teaching people how to mitigate human and wildlife conflict. And so we see over 1,800 animals per year. We have over 150 volunteers who help us do the work that we do. And we also, we have consulting veterinarians who work with us, and lots of volunteer and internship opportunities. Although our volunteer opportunities right now are we have a wait list, but if you apply via our website, we will let you know as soon as opportunities become open. We also operate a wildlife emergency helpline, which is where people can call us if they find animals in distress, or if you have a human wildlife conflict. And in 2021, we received over 10,000 phone calls. And last year, we actually received just under 10,000 phone calls. And I love seeing that number. I love sharing that because it speaks volumes to the importance and the need of the work that we do. And we do rely on public donations, and thank goodness we are thriving thanks to your support. So if you love this presentation, feel free to make a donation. You can visit our website, wildcarecapecod.org, and make a donation there. And what animals do we treat at WildCare, and why? Why do we receive animals? Primarily for 3 reasons. They're either orphaned, injured, or diseased. And we see wild birds, reptiles, amphibians, and small mammals. And we are located on the Eastham Rotary. Well, it's the Orleans Rotary on the Eastham side. And I love that. That's very confusing to people. Everyone thinks we're in Orleans. We're almost in Orleans. We're on the Orleans Rotary, but the Eastham side. And you can see last year we received 58% birds, 38% small mammals, 4% reptiles and amphibian. And we treated 137 different species in 2022. It's pretty amazing. My staff are incredible. They have to know so much, unlike a human doctor, which they have to know everything as well, but they have to know everything for one species. We have to know everything for a myriad of species. It's pretty incredible. Oops, and I already referenced this slide, the animals that we treat. And my last WildCare slide is the most important one, I believe. And it represents that we saw 1,836 animals in 2022, and over 70% of these animals were impacted negatively by people. And this is also why I'm going to talk about mice and squirrels, because there's a lot of human interaction, and often it's not positive human interaction. So I'm hoping to help with that. And I always include this slide in all of my talks. I feel so incredibly blessed to live on Cape Cod, where we have an abundance of wildlife, basically in the air, the land, and the sea. And so if you're on this Zoom today, I already know that you care about wild animals, and I just want to say thank you. So let's start with squirrels. I feel like people either love them or hate them. And on Cape Cod, we have several different species of squirrel. And we are going to focus today just on eastern gray squirrels. But I also want you to know that we do have southern flying squirrels. They're a non-native species, and they are abundant throughout Cape Cod. Most people don't see them because they're nocturnal, hence these big, beautiful eyes. We also have red squirrels. They are a native species. And then our eastern gray squirrels, which are a native species. But what most people don't know is woodchucks and eastern chipmunks are an actual type of squirrel. They're in the Squirrelidae family. And so this is a woodchuck. And this is a baby eastern chipmunk. And we don't see a lot of woodchucks at WildCare. They're just other parts of Massachusetts tend to have more woodchucks because they have agricultural land and more open fields. But we do get a lot of chipmunks at WildCare. As you know, if you have a backyard on Cape Cod, you probably have an abundance of chipmunks. So a few things about eastern gray squirrels. I think they're absolutely fabulous. I love their antics. They're beautiful. I know they can be a real pain in the butt, especially at your bird feeding stations because they take over and they eat everything. A little bit about their life cycle and their habits. So on Cape Cod, they typically have 2 to 3 litters per year. And we usually start seeing babies in March. That's the first litter. And then in August, that's the second litter. And sometimes they have a litter in between. The male does not play any parental role. It's all mom, and squirrel moms are the bomb. They are such good moms, which is going to really help you in the event that a nest has fallen down due to tree felling. We often can reunite babies with their mom. So in the early spring, I always say, uh-oh, when I start seeing this chasing activity with squirrels. I'm sure you've all seen it. And that is pre-copulatory chasing. That's when hormones come into play. Squirrels are thinking about breeding. The male secretes a mucus plug, which is to prevent females from mating with other males. And there's a 44-day gestation, which is a long gestation period for a small mammal. They typically birth 2 to 4 pups. The pups are in the nest for a very long time. It takes a long time to grow a squirrel. They have a 1 to 2 year life expectancy, and that is a short lifespan, and that's because they easily succumb to vehicles. They're sometimes electrocuted, but more so they are a prey item for everything: hawks, owls, and large carnivores. I love this gray squirrel. It looks like it hasn't missed a meal. This was in Eastham. So why are they important? Like, why do we care about squirrels? Why do we take care of squirrels? They're everywhere. Well, they are important prey animals, as I just mentioned. They also are extremely important as forest regenerators. You've all heard that squirrels bury their acorns, they bury their nuts, their seeds, and that they remember where they are. Well, they can remember where most of them are, but they don't remember where all of them are. And so the ones that are left behind become our future trees and important plants. So squirrels really are critical in forest regeneration. Also, their nutrient-rich feces, their pellets, provide nutrients to the soil. They distribute truffle fungal spores. And then also just that their antics and their adorableness, I think, are good for our health. Squirrels are great for mental health. Squirrels are pretty fabulous. So eastern gray squirrels, they don't hibernate. They're primarily herbivores. Something that people don't know is that their teeth are always growing. In rodents, it is continuous tooth growth. So that is why they're always chewing. They always have to be chewing and wearing down those teeth. Females don't breed until 5.5 months. And even though that male secretes a copulatory plug, they can have litters from multiple males. She can remove that plug and basically mate with whoever she wants. Squirrels recognize family members. So even when they're adults, once time has passed, there is recognition of family, which is incredible. And adult females will adopt squirrel babies if they are related. The mother will sometimes take on that maternal role for related squirrel babies. Just some information that we never think about. Okay, so squirrels, what do they do here on Cape Cod and in the Northeast? Well, they build lots of nests. And it's actually a good thing that squirrels build lots of nests, because if you are tree felling or a nest falls down, mom can move the babies to another location. But the classic squirrel nest, I think I have, do I have another picture? The classic squirrel nest is a big ball of sticks and leaves. And you all know these because when we live here on Cape Cod or in Massachusetts, in the winter, you can really see these big ball nests, right? Because there's no leaves on the trees. So if you look up and there's a big ball that looks like leaves, old oak and maple leaves, that is a squirrel ball. And I love this photo of this squirrel going and repairing the nest. So baby squirrels for us at WildCare, it's the 3rd highest mammal intake. And these numbers are from 2021. The highest number of a mammal that we get are eastern cottontails, often over 300 a year, cottontail rabbits, and many of those are orphans. And mice, believe it or not, we get over usually over 120 mice, mostly babies, throughout the year. But you can see here in 2021, we received 131 eastern gray squirrels. 120 of those were orphans. And like I said, it's 12 weeks that a squirrel would be in the nest nursing. So we have to do the same. Those squirrels are going to be with us for at least 12 weeks being nursed. And that's important because that's a long chunk of time, right? So whenever we can keep them with their mom, we will do anything in our power to do that. We're not going to talk about other squirrels today because most of your interactions will be with eastern gray squirrels. And this is just an example of last year. We have a rescue board. We have a board in our clinic, and it shows all of the animals in our care, and everything that says EGSQ, those are eastern gray squirrels. So these were group after group of baby squirrels. And once they graduate from the incubators, they graduate to these small kennels, then to large condo cages, then to outdoor enclosures. So several steps to rehab a squirrel. So why do we get squirrels at WildCare? We get a lot of orphans. Right now, orphans are coming in due to tree felling. People are taking down trees. They don't know that there's a nest in it. And then all of a sudden there's, a bunch of babies on the ground. Sometimes they're injured. Many times they're not, because it's a big, beautiful ball nest that offers some cushion. Also, we get babies because the mother has been hit by a car. The babies are starving and desperate, and they start wandering out of the nest. We also sadly get babies because people trap and relocate squirrels. That is illegal in the state of Massachusetts. Also, I realize that people think they're doing something kind, but at this time of year, if you trap and relocate anything, you are leaving babies behind. And then WildCare ends up getting those orphans. The other reasons we get babies are predators in the nest. A hawk gets into a nest and drops a baby, cats and dogs, storms, and also people who find a nest and they don't want it there, so they bring it in. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to re-nest squirrels. Also, engine work. We sometimes, people will open up the hood of their car and there is a nest in it. Squirrels love to nest in outdoor stoves, fireplaces, and the adults we primarily receive because they've been hit by a car, they've been shot, often illegally, or have electrical injuries because they do like to climb around on utility lines. So eastern gray squirrels, this is what they look like in their neonatal stage. These are little pinkies, less than a week. They're born pink, blind, and hairless. Soft fur doesn't start to develop until day 5. They start getting the fur around the nose. They cannot thermoregulate at this age. They are so dependent on mom. And even as little as they are, if mom is killed, these babies, after several days, they're starving. If they don't freeze to death, they're starving. They start wandering and they start dropping out of their nests. And then people find these babies. They're usually flea riddled, injured, thin, desperate, and they bring them into us. At this stage, when we get these little pinkies, they require overnight care. So our staff take them home because they require nursings up until late in the evening. They require several nursings per day. So I love this story because we got these wonderful people found 2 skinny little babies underneath their birdhouse. And obviously their mother had been nesting in the birdhouse. She must have been killed. And these babies were absolutely starving. You can see how skinny they are, and they look like they have giant heads. And so this is classic what we see when mom is dead. They wandered out of the nest and fell. They had bloody noses from falling on their face. And so of course, we took them in. They required over 6 feedings a day. We nursed them for 10 to 12 weeks. And I'm happy to say you can see them growing, getting fur, getting bigger. Their body is starting to match their head. They don't have that giant head anymore. And then they open their eyes, all the gray squirrels open their eyes around 3 to 6 weeks. Lower teeth start to emerge at 4 weeks and upper teeth by 5. And these are all markers to us that indicate the age of the squirrel. And I'm happy to tell you that these two squirrels are those little babies that came in all emaciated and big-headed. And so gray squirrels at 6 weeks, they can sit upright and they look like adults, like with the tail over the back. They start climbing around the nest at 6 weeks. At 8 weeks, they're active, they're jumpy, they're starting to come out of the nest and climb and hang upside down and get into trouble. By 10 weeks, they have a full bushy tail, fully grown teeth, and they leave the nest by 12 weeks. And thankfully for us, because imagine keeping a baby anything for 12 weeks is of concern, right? Well, don't they habituate? Aren't they imprinted? No, thank God. We always make sure squirrels are in groups. Imagine as a litter, they're so social, they would never be alone. And squirrels are social in general, except for females who are breeding or having babies because they don't want males around. And a lot of their behaviors are innate. So all we have to do is provide them with what they need. So for example, we start giving them branches and bark and things to chew on and stuff to climb on. And we give them a dirt tray so they can bury things. We give them leaves so they can start gathering them. So all of that is, we look at those as indicators of normal behavior. Squirrels are so cool. And so if you find an orphan squirrel in your backyard, you can give us a call, get it warm. And we're going to ask you a bunch of questions on the phone to try to determine if it's really orphaned. We're going to want to know if mom is around. Is it injured? Was it in your cat's mouth? If it was injured in your cat's mouth, in your dog's mouth and covered in saliva, we're going to have you bring it in. If it's not injured and mom is around, we're going to have you try to re-nest it. What we do often is when you call us, my staff will ask you to send photos because we can tell a lot from photos. Like those big-headed, emaciated squirrels, we would know instantly, okay, mom has been gone for days, please bring them in. So we're going to talk about that more in a second. I have a few different scenarios. So what happens, you have a car that's sitting around in your yard, you finally need to use it, you open up the hood and you find this. This was from 2 years ago. Squirrels nesting in the car. Call us. Do not move them. Don't take them out of the car. Call us first. What we did in this scenario was we instructed the man to put the babies into a shoebox with a heating device underneath it to keep them warm, put the nesting material in it, minimize handling, wear gloves so the babies don't smell like you, make sure the babies don't overheat, watch from a distance for mom to return and retrieve her babies. And I don't have a photo. He sent us a photo of mom coming. Mom came one by one. I think it took 2 hours. And took those babies. And like I said before, they make many nests. And we are so grateful that they do that because now she has another place to take those babies. The reason gray squirrels make many nests is because she might want to move the babies in the event of predators. Some nests are for sleeping. Some nests are for like storing food. Some nests are for going to the bathroom. She got a whole lot of nests up her sleeve. So we will probably instruct you to put the babies in a box in the same location and watch for mom. And then, like it says here, it might take hours, but we love to work with people who are willing to do this because otherwise, these little babies that are a couple of weeks old, we'd have them, for 14 weeks. So we'd much rather take the time with you to re-nest them with mom. Also check under your hood before leaving on a road trip because see these skinny little babies. These are red squirrels. They have wounds on them. A car had come all the way from Georgia. And when they got here, they needed the car repaired. They brought it to the auto shop. They opened up the hood and there are these little babies that had been 3 days without their mother. And they had come from Georgia. So obviously re-nesting was not an option. And we took them in and they grew up and they were all released. But before you go on a road trip, check your hood, check your air filter for baby mice, check your engine for giant squirrel nests like this. And so how do you prevent squirrels from nesting in undesirable locations? Well, we tell people always, check and move your dormant vehicles, your equipment, your grills, check them, move them to new locations all the time. Mother squirrel, mother mouse, they do not want to nest in an unstable environment. And you can also, if you check under your hood and they've started a nest, dismantle it. Mom doesn't want to be there if there's been a predator under the hood. In this case, so the squirrel nest under the hood, other options are prop the hood open, play loud music, shine bright lights. Mom is not going to want to be there. She's going to move them. You can also place rags of vinegar, peppermint oil, eucalyptus oil. So I hope this all makes sense. You either put them in a box, put them right near the car and watch for mom, or put a bunch of deterrents under the hood or the lawnmower, and discourage animals from being there. Mothballs are not recommended only because they are actually carcinogenic to fish and harmful in our watersheds. So mothballs really shouldn't be used other than their label, intended use on the label. So trapping and relocating, we already talked about this. It is illegal. Also, when you trap and relocate an animal, I know you think you're doing something kind, but now they're in a new environment with no shelter, territorial animals, dangers they're not aware of. They don't know where the food is. Animals don't survive. So don't do it. In Massachusetts, it's also illegal. And I like to remind people that prior to capping your chimney, please make sure that you don't have any squirrels or raccoons nesting in your chimney. And if you are calling a pest control agent and they're using, say you have squirrels in your attic and pest control is going to install a one-way door, they need to make sure that they get the babies out first. And when they install the one-way door, the mom can come out. She won't be able to get back in, but if her babies are right there in a box, she will 99% of the time retrieve them. I hope I'm not going through this information too quickly. We get so many scenarios where people have called pest control and, oh yeah, easy breezy, one-way door, squirt mom's out. Then 3 days later, they hear babies crying. Now we've got babies starving to death in the walls, and then it becomes wildcare's problem. And we would honestly, we prefer to take care of the babies that truly are orphaned, not orphaned because of, a problem animal control agent didn't do their job well. So, and I'm not bashing problem animal control agents. I think most of them want to do the right thing. But right now, you got babies. If you got a mom in your attic, you got babies. Okay, so what about, we get a scenario throughout the whole summer of someone calls and they have a young squirrel that's following them and climbing on them. This is not normal. This is desperation behavior. This means that mom is deceased and these babies are starving and desperate and they are premature to be out of the nest and they exhibit friendly behavior. So don't coddle them and don't let your dog play with them. What we want you to do is put on heavy gloves and a towel, place them into a cardboard box or a cat or small dog crate, no food or water, warmth, quiet, transport to a wildlife rehabber. This little baby, you can see here how skinny it is, and it's holding up its right front paw. This baby was grabbed by a dog in a backyard in Orleans, and unfortunately it suffered a fracture to the humerus, but the owner was there, and we were able to treat the squirrel. So pain management, it was emaciated, like obviously without mom, fleas. We bandaged it here, pain management, antibiotics, and I'm happy to report several weeks later, this is what that little squirrel looked like before release. Squirrels approaching you like that is desperation. That is not normal. So you definitely want to get them contained, and they sometimes bite because they are so hungry and confused that they will tend to nip your fingers. So wear heavy gloves and get them into a box and we will take them. So you found a baby squirrel. Can you keep it? Not in the state of Massachusetts. It's illegal to keep eastern gray or red squirrels. You're required to have a Massachusetts state rehab license. But also they have special dietary needs. A lot of times we get babies that people have had for days or weeks, and they are feeding inappropriate food like cow's milk or cheese or pudding or God knows what. And then we get these really sick, diarrhea, emaciated, GI issue babies. And that is the worst because sometimes they die, and the finder thinks, oh, well, I've had it for 2 weeks and then I give it to you and it dies. Well, it had improper nutrition for 2 weeks. So please just don't. We are here. We specialize in squirrels and mice. Don't feed them. And they also need to recognize people as a threat. So we have ways where we raise them and they don't become habituated to people. There's also zoonotic diseases they can transfer to you or your pets. And we want them to wild up once they reach sexual maturity. And they will do that in a rehab setting with other squirrels. They also have special habitat needs, right? Obviously they grow up and they get territorial and they can't be living in your home. Okay, so what about if you actually like squirrels? How can you help them? You can plant a lot of shrubs and trees in your backyard. You can put up a squirrel box. Don't use pesticides. They absolutely adore bird feeders, as we all know, and bird baths. Please don't use rodenticides. Those are mouse and rat poisons. Squirrels will also consume those. They are bait. They're an attractive bait. Do not trap and relocate. Never use snap traps outdoors. You will snap the unintended, and squirrels are a classic example. Squirrels and opossums get snapped in snap traps all the time. Please report illegal activity. If you know anyone who is shooting squirrels in their backyard or animal cruelty towards squirrels, please report that to your police. Unfortunately, we do see that, thankfully, not a lot on Cape Cod. This is a nature-loving community, but we do get squirrels that are shot illegally, and we have had some examples of human intentional cruelty to squirrels. That was a lot of squirrel info. And I'm just going to keep going so then we can get to questions at the end. So I hope that was helpful in showing you what to do if you find a squirrel nest, and don't panic. Don't bring it into your house. There's ways to deter them or make her move the babies. So let's talk about mice. The white-footed mouse is one of our native mice. They're absolutely beautiful. They're my most favorite creature on this planet. And their Greek name is Peromyscus leucopus. Peromyscus, I assume, is a play on being promiscuous, promiscuous. And their Greek name means booted mouse. And you can see here, they have these long back legs with beautiful white fur. It looks like they're wearing these sort of pink and white boots. So males and females, they take several mates. One litter of mouse pups will have several dads, and that's just to ensure, the best genes are going to survive. Females don't want males around when they're breeding. They just want to take care of the pups. Females will choose new mates in the spring. Female mouse moms are, I'm biased, but I think they are just the best. They want their babies. They're amazing mothers. So mice on Cape Cod, it's pretty mild here and they can breed year round. But typically in the northern states where we do get the cold season, they breed March through October, November. And so we don't get many mouse pups between November and March. Then it starts up again in March. They have 2 to 4 litters per year, 2 to 6 pups per litter. Gestation is long for a little tiny creature, 23 days. Mice are amazing in that they can get pregnant within 12 hours of giving birth. And so sometimes we will get, someone will bring us a whole mouse family, a mouse with pups that was like in an engine, and they bring it to us. And then in this case, for example, this mother mouse here with the pinkies, she actually was already pregnant. So as soon as those babies were weaned, she gave birth again. It's like, whoa, we've got a mouse factory here. The reason they have so many babies is because their lifespan is short. They have a lifespan of about 1 year in the wild. They can live much longer in captivity, but everything eats them. And this slide is just that female mice, they care for the pups and they're incredible moms, and there's no parental care, male parental care. So mouse pup development. This here is a 2.34 gram mouse pup that we got at WildCare. And mice, I try to age them when they come in, and when they're born, they are hairless and blind. They start to develop peach fuzz around day 5, or like that 5 o'clock shadow, we call it. So this mouse here was around 5 days old. It was starting to get formed eye slits. Their ears open around day 10, and their eyes open at day 12. They're weaned by 2 to 3 weeks and sexually mature in 44 days. So this is a 5-day-old pup. Oops, my computer mouse is really slippery. This is a 5-day-old pup. These guys at the bottom are a little bit younger. Thankfully for us at WildCare, they do grow like weeds. So instead of having them for 12 weeks nursing them, I have to nurse them for 2 weeks. Well, depending on their age. Their lives are short, but very productive. And after they wean, they need to leave. Mom is ready for her next litter. And so they leave the nest quickly and become sexually mature. So why do we take care of mice? Who cares, right? They're pests. Everyone hates them. Mice are so critically important to the environment. Did you all just read the New York Times article about the decisions that mice and voles make are actually how our forest grows? It is the decisions they're making about where to plant seeds and the depths, et cetera, et cetera. The forest is dependent on that. It's a really incredible article if you can look it up. I can't remember what it's called, but if you look up New York Times and look up decisions made by mice and voles, it was life-changing to read it. They're vital to every ecosystem. They are our link to plants and predators. They are basically forest regenerators, but they are also a critically important food item for everything. Raptors, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. Mice are important. These are 2 little babies that I raised. So mice, they're in our care for 1 to 2 months. They require hand feeding up to 2 weeks. It's a lot of work. I take most of the orphan mice home. Older mice stay at WildCare and are raised there. And so last year we received 148 white-footed mice. I took in 66 orphans to rehabilitate, and I have a 74% survival rate. So all those babies, they all they go to WildCare. Once they're weaned, they graduate to a larger enclosure, and then they are released back into the wild. We release them into woods, away from homes, human dwellings. And why do we get mice? Some of you might be saying, who the heck brings you mice? Well, we get mice all the time from people that are moving items. For example, they may have moved a lawnmower from one place to the next, and then all of a sudden see a nest of babies in it. We find baby mice in parking lots that have dropped out of car engines. People trap and relocate mother mice and then start to find starving babies. This is how we get mice. Mice are, I think, the best mom in the wildlife world. You can easily encourage them to move their nests and easily get them to retrieve their babies. So how do you prevent mice from nesting in undesirable locations like your lawnmower, your grill? A little bit of prevention goes a long way. Same as for squirrels. Check and move your dormant equipment. Move it around. If you find a nest that has started that doesn't have babies in it, dismantle it If you find nests under the hood of your car, loud music, bright lights, rags of vinegar. Mice don't like commercial grade peppermint and eucalyptus oil. Deterrence and exclusion are key. So these are simple things you can do to discourage mice from nesting or to get them from moving on. So what happens if, we're going to have a beautiful weekend. You want to use the grill, you open the grill and there's a mouse nest in it with all these little pups. Don't panic. So with gloved hands, you can take the mice and the nesting material, or you can move some of the nesting material and try that. And mom is probably going to come back and detect the change and move the babies out of the grill. Or you can place the whole nest with the babies into a small cardboard box, put some little peepholes in the box, and then come back and you can check in the box, and mom is going to do one of two things. She's going to move the babies. She's going to keep the babies in the box and move in there. Or she is just going to move the babies all together to a new location. And so what you can do, if you see them in there, then you can close up the door and move them into your yard near a stone wall or under some brush, someplace where they'll be safe. Do not relocate. Again, illegal, and animals don't fare well. Imagine being a mom and you're just dumped into the woods in a new location. They're not going to survive. So I hope this makes sense. Basically, you just want to disrupt that nest because you want the mom to sense that there's danger and move them. So sometimes what we have people do is you could put the whole nest into a little cardboard box right near the grill and ask, have the mom retrieve them from there. It works. It really works. I know some of you probably think I'm crazy, like we're talking about mice. And they are great moms. They want their babies. So what if you have mice in your kitchen? What do you do? Well, we don't have time to talk about it, but there are a ton of alternatives to poison. I never recommend poison. And something you can do to keep mice out of your house is, if you can determine how they're getting in, you can stuff those areas with coarse steel wool and then seal that in with spray foam insulation. This really works. I've done it in my own apartment, which was breached by mice. It's also important, if you have mice, you need to determine the source of attraction. Is it pet food outdoors? Is it bird seed that's not being cleaned up? Is it rotting fruit or berries? Compost. Remove those attractants. Lethal traps like snap traps and electrocution traps, to me, are far more humane than poison. But if you are snap trapping or electrocuting mice right now, you are leaving babies behind. Please consider that, because I'm the one who's going to end up getting them. People trap mice and then move them outside into their yard, and that's a lovely thing to do, except in the summer, because then a few days later they start finding all these starving babies. So what I tell people to do is right now, to do exclusion inside your home, and then do your external exclusion in the fall and winter along with your snap traps. And in the meantime, remove all sources of attractant. It's just hard. People feel like they're doing the right humane thing, but right now everything's got babies. So we already talked about some of these snap traps, electrocution traps. There's also ultrasonic. You can install these little strobe lights that mice find to be a deterrent. So many things. There's so many options. I'm going to do a talk on alternatives. Also, some natural deterrents are vinegar. Outdoors, you can use predator urine, ammonia, cayenne pepper, lemon oil, citronella oil, so many things. These are two little pups that were in my care. The best rodent control that there is are our raptors. And you can also put an owl box up at your property. That's the best way to control rodents, though owls won't always come immediately. But here on Cape Cod, you can put up a screech owl box and hope to get a screech owl resident. So what do you do if you find a baby mouse, a single baby mouse? We ask that you give us a call, get them warm, quiet, dark, with some of their nesting material, no food or water. Mice are very tiny, and if you don't feed them properly, they're going to aspirate the fluid into their lungs. If you call us, we're going to ask for photos. If the baby looks healthy to us and you have seen mom, for example, you're cleaning your garage, you move a potted plant up, a plant pot, and mom drops a baby. Now you have this little baby. What do you do? Well, you saw mom. So we are going to basically have you do a reunion, which is as simple as putting a small box that mom can get into with the nesting material and a heat source and giving mom time to retrieve that pup. And often we have people do that, overnight. And so in the morning, if the baby's still there, then that was not a success and we'll take the baby. But otherwise, mom, in goodness, 95% of the cases, mom will take the pup. If the pup is injured, thin, weak, dehydrated, cat or dog, mouse, we're going to have you bring it to us. You found a baby mouse. Can you keep it? Well, in the state of Massachusetts, you're not allowed to rehab them unless you have a license. On the other hand, they are listed as an acceptable pet on the mass.gov website. We don't encourage this for so many reasons. Obviously, we like to keep wild things wild. But they can carry zoonotic diseases that are transmissible to humans and their pets. And so, of course, mice, fleas and ticks, Lyme disease. Lyme disease, you all know that white-footed mice, I hate that they get a bad rap, but they are a reservoir host for Lyme disease. Babesiosis, which is another tick or flea-borne disease. Hantavirus, salmonella, tularemia. The list goes on. And I can tell you, I've been working with mice now for probably 15 years. I've specialized in them for the last 5, and I have never had an issue. Mice are very, very sanitary. Even though the conditions in which you find them in often are unsanitary conditions, mice themselves are very sanitary. Oh, yes. For mice, I'm always seeking donations. And that's, of course, shelled walnuts and pillowcases and Pedialyte aquariums, Espalac, which is a puppy milk replacement formula. And I'm going to open this up to questions. I'm sure you'll have questions. I went through the information really fast, but I hope you all realize that we all, through simple actions, we can really make a difference in the life of an animal and family lives of animals. I love this photo. We often give our young patients stuffed animals to snuggle with. Imagine if you're a baby squirrel and you just lost your mom. It's comforting.